Let's get right into it. Number 8, you start having full conversations with yourself. You're making coffee alone in your apartment, and suddenly you're narrating your own life like a nature documentary. And here we see the human, attempting to operate basic kitchen equipment before consuming caffeine. And then you laugh at your own joke, out loud, to nobody. This isn't you losing it, it's actually your brain trying to stay social when there's nobody around. The language centers in your brain, specifically Broca's area and Wernicke's area, are wired to be used constantly. When you don't have anyone to talk to, your brain just keeps talking anyway. It's like a muscle that refuses to stop flexing. What's wild is that talking to yourself out loud actually helps. Studies show that verbalizing your thoughts improves problem solving, emotional regulation, and memory. When you hear your own voice, your brain processes it differently than internal thoughts. It feels more real, more external. You're basically tricking your consciousness into thinking it has a conversation partner. The weird part is how natural it becomes. First, it's just muttering. Then it's full sentences. Then you're asking yourself questions and answering them in different tones. Should I eat lunch now? Nah, let's wait. But I'm hungry. You're always hungry. Congratulations, you've become a one-person improv show and the audience left 3 days ago. Number 7, your sleep schedule becomes a suggestion. Remember when you had a normal bedtime? Yeah, that's gone now. When you're alone for extended periods, your circadian rhythm, the internal clock that tells you when to sleep, starts drifting. This happens because your brain relies on external cues to stay calibrated. Sunlight, yes, but also social interaction, meal times with others, scheduled activities. Strip those away and your body just makes up its own schedule. You'll start going to bed at 4 a.m. and waking up at noon, or sleeping in 2 separate chunks, or taking a nap at 6 p.m. that somehow turns into your main sleep. This isn't just inconvenient, it genuinely messes with you. Your sleep quality tanks because you're sleeping at random times. Your mood regulation suffers because your cortisol and melatonin rhythms are all over the place. You'll be wide awake at 3 a.m. scrolling through your phone, feeling like a nocturnal creature who's forgotten how daylight works. And the kicker? Once you try to rejoin normal society, your body revolts. Suddenly having to wake up at 7 a.m. feels like jet lag from a flight you never took. Your brain spent all that time in isolation learning a new schedule, and now you're asking it to unlearn it overnight. Good luck with that. Number 6, you forget how to do small talk. So you finally see another human being after days alone, and they hit you with, "How's it going?" and your brain completely short circuits. Because what are you supposed to say? Good? You've been alone eating cereal for dinner and watching YouTube videos about conspiracy theories. Nothing is good in the traditional sense, but you also can't unload your entire psychological state on someone asking a casual question, so you just stand there for 3 seconds too long before mumbling "fine" like a malfunctioning robot. This happens because the parts of your brain that handle social scripts, the prefrontal cortex and temporal parietal junction, get rusty from disuse. Small talk is a complex dance of reading cues, matching energy, saying things you don't mean, like, "How are you? Good, you?" when neither person cares, and your brain treats it like a muscle memory skill. Stop practicing and you forget the choreography. What's worse is you overthink everything. Someone says, "Nice weather," and you're analyzing it like a philosophy text. Do they actually think it's nice? Are they just filling silence? Should I agree or provide a more nuanced meteorological take? Meanwhile, they've already walked away and you're still formulating your response. Then when you finally do talk, you accidentally overshare. They ask what you've been up to, and you launch into a 10-minute monologue about your thoughts on whether plants can feel pain. And halfway through, you see their eyes glaze over and realize you've become the person nobody wants to sit next to at parties. Your social calibration is just gone. You're either awkwardly silent or uncomfortably intense, with no in-between. Number 5, everything starts feeling slightly unreal. There's this moment that happens when you've been alone too long. You're sitting in your room, and suddenly everything feels like a movie set. Like you're not actually in your life, you're watching it happen to someone else. The walls look fake. Your hands don't feel like yours. You're here, but also not here. Psychologists call this derealization, and it's shockingly common in isolation. Your brain constructs your sense of reality using constant input, sensory data, social feedback, environmental changes. When you're alone in the same space doing the same things every day, your brain gets lazy. It stops fully rendering your experience because nothing new is happening. Think of it like a video game that only loads the area around your character. Your brain is doing the same thing, except instead of saving processing power, it's just bored. The prefrontal cortex, which maintains your sense of presence and reality, starts phoning it in. And it gets weirder with time. You'll look in the mirror and your own face looks unfamiliar. You'll say your name out loud and it sounds made up. You'll have memories, but they feel like they happened to someone else. Your brain is so dependent on external validation of reality that without it, everything becomes vaguely dreamlike. The really unsettling part is you get used to it. The unreality becomes your new normal. And then when you do interact with people again, that feels unreal instead. You're sitting across from someone at coffee and thinking, is this actually happening? Because your brain has forgotten that other people exist in physical space and not just as concepts in your head. You've essentially gaslighted yourself into questioning the nature of existence, and all you did was stay home too long. Number 4. You develop weird little rituals. When you're alone long enough, you start doing things that would look absolutely unhinged to an outside observer. Maybe you arrange your coffee mugs in a specific order every morning. Maybe you eat meals at the exact same time while sitting in the exact same spot. Maybe you've developed a 15-step nighttime routine that must be completed in perfect sequence or you can't sleep. Maybe you've named your plant houses and apologized to them when you forget to water them. This isn't quirky personality. It's your brain desperately trying to create structure when there isn't any. The basal ganglia, which handles habit formation, goes into overdrive during isolation. Without external structure from social obligations, your brain manufactures internal structure through rituals and routines. It's actually a coping mechanism. Rituals provide predictability, and predictability reduces anxiety. When your environment is understimulating and you have too much control over your own time, these little repetitive behaviors give your brain something to latch onto. They're anchors in a sea of nothing. But they can get out of hand. What starts as, I like to have my coffee at 9 a.m., becomes, if I don't have my coffee at exactly 9 a.m., my entire day is ruined and I'm convinced something terrible will happen. Your brain has taken a preference and upgraded it to a superstition. And you don't even notice it happening until someone else points it out. They're like, why do you touch the doorframe twice before leaving? And you're like, what do you mean? Because you've completely forgotten that's not a thing everyone does. You've been alone so long that your personal weirdness has become your baseline normal. Basically, isolation turns everyone into a low-key, obsessive-compulsive version of themselves, and you won't realize it until you rejoin society and someone watches you perform your bizarre coffee ritual with genuine concern. Number 3. You lose track of what day it is, then stop caring. What day is it becomes the hardest question anyone can ask you. Is it Tuesday, Thursday? Does it matter? When you're alone with no obligations, days stop being distinct units of time and just blur into one continuous now. You're living in a timeless void where yesterday and 3 days ago are functionally identical because nothing different happened. This temporal disintegration happens because your brain tags memories based on distinctive events. When you have social interactions, meetings, different activities throughout the week, your hippocampus files them away with timestamps. Monday feels different from Friday because different things happened. But in isolation, every day is the same. Wake up, coffee, screen time, meals, more screen time, sleep. Repeat. Your brain looks at this pattern and just stops bothering to mark the days as separate days. Why waste the energy creating distinct memories when they're all identical? The really trippy part is how this affects your perception of time passing. A week can feel like it took 2 days or 2 months, and you can't genuinely tell which one. You'll think that thing happened recently and check your calendar and it was 3 weeks ago. Or you'll think, I haven't done that in forever, and it was yesterday. And then the existential dread kicks in. You realize you can't account for how you spent the last month. It's just gone. Not in a time flies way, but in a I genuinely cannot tell you what I did with those 30 days. Your life is passing and you're not even conscious of it passing because your brain stopped recording it. Eventually, you stop trying to track it. Someone asks, what day is it? And you just shrug because at this point, you've accepted that linear time is a social construct and you're no longer participating. You're living in the eternal present, and the eternal present is honestly kind of boring. Number 2, you start craving human contact, but also dreading it. Here's where it gets really twisted. You've been alone so long that you desperately want to see people. You're fantasizing about conversations, imagining hanging out with friends, feeling that ache for human connection. And then someone actually invites you to something, and you immediately want to cancel. This isn't just social anxiety. It's your brain being fundamentally confused about what it needs. The anterior cingulate cortex, which processes social pain, is screaming that you're isolated, but simultaneously, your amygdala has decided that social situations are threatening because you've been out of practice so long. So you're stuck in this impossible loop. Staying alone hurts, seeing people is terrifying. You want connection, but you've forgotten how to do it. It's like being starving, but also forgetting how to eat, so food is both desperately desired and completely overwhelming. And when you do force yourself into social situations, your brain can't handle it. Too much stimulation after too much nothing. You're exhausted after 30 minutes of conversation. You need to recover from hanging out with friends like you just ran a marathon. Your nervous system is throwing a full-on tantrum because you asked it to do something it used to do easily. What's worse is you start self-isolating even more because the effort of being social seems insurmountable. You turn down invitations, you cancel plans. You tell yourself you'll reach out when you're feeling better. But feeling better requires social interaction, which you're avoiding, which makes you feel worse. It's a trap of your own making, and you're aware of it while being completely unable to stop it. You're simultaneously the prisoner and the guard, and you've locked yourself in a cell made of your own anxiety about whether you still know how to have a normal conversation without being weird. Spoiler, you probably will be weird, but that's better than the alternative, which is slowly forgetting that other people are real. Number 1, you forget that you're not the only person in the world. And this is the big one. The thing that happens so gradually you don't notice until it's completely rewired how you think. When you're alone long enough, your brain stops automatically considering other perspectives. Not in a malicious way, just in a why would I factor in people who aren't here way. You start making decisions based purely on what you want, when you want it, how you want it, because there's nobody else to accommodate. The prefrontal cortex, which handles theory of mind, your ability to understand that other people have their own thoughts, feelings, and experiences, gets weaker. It's like a muscle you're not using. You stop intuitively understanding that your experience isn't universal. So you re-enter social situations, and you're genuinely confused when people don't read your mind. You're annoyed when they don't laugh at references only you would get. You're frustrated when they want to do something you don't want to do, because you spent so long with your preferences being the only preferences that matter. You've become the main character of your own life in the most literal sense. Everyone else feels like NPCs, background characters. You intellectually know they're real people, but you don't feel it the way you used to. And the empathy deficit is real. Studies show that prolonged isolation decreases activity in the temporal parietal junction, which processes empathy and perspective taking. You're not a bad person. Your brain is just literally atrophied in its ability to care about others because it hasn't needed to. The really scary part? You might not even want to fix it, because existing in your own bubble where you're the only person that matters is kind of comfortable. No compromise, no conflict, no having to consider anyone else's needs. You've accidentally created a perfect dictatorship of one, and the dictator is you, and you're pretty okay with it. Until you realize you're lonely, and then you remember that other people exist, and then you have to somehow reverse months or years of your brain forgetting how to care about anyone but yourself. And that's harder than you think, because your brain has genuinely changed. You're not the same person you were before isolation. You're a more self-centered, less empathetic, more disconnected version of yourself. And climbing back out of that hole requires doing the exact thing your brain now finds threatening. Being around people, caring about them, remembering that your internal world isn't the only world that exists. It's like waking up from a very long, very lonely dream, except the dream has physically altered your brain, and now you have to convince yourself that everyone else is real again. Good luck with that. That's all for today. I'll be making more videos like this, so subscribe if you don't want to miss them.